All right, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're cracking open the case file on Jolly Rancher Gummies to investigate their true halal status. We're going to break down the facts, sift through the evidence, and figure out exactly what is hiding inside these brightly colored treats. So, let's just jump right in.
Now, what's really interesting about this whole topic is that when most people look at an innocent little packet of Jolly Ranchers, they just see bright colors, sweet fruit flavors, a fun, simple candy. Nothing serious, right? But for a Muslim consumer, looking at a product like this requires asking a much deeper, much more critical question than just how it tastes. The absolute first thought is always, is this halal or is it haram? And as we're going to see, finding that answer, well, it's not always as simple as just glancing at the front of the bag.
The idea here perfectly frames the gummy candy dilemma we're investigating today. You see, gummies are actually one of the most highly sensitive candy categories out there. Why? Because achieving that perfectly soft, chewy texture that everybody loves usually relies on one very specific ingredient, and that's gelatin. And from an Islamic perspective, gelatin is where things can get incredibly complicated. I mean, if that gelatin comes from pork or from an animal that hasn't been slaughtered in a halal way, it becomes a massive problem. It literally transforms a completely harmless sweet into a religiously prohibited item.
So let's move right into section 1, breaking down the ingredients.
Okay, let's dive into this. To figure out if we actually have a gelatin problem here, we need to transition into the evidence-gathering phase of our investigation. We need to examine the clues left right there on the actual packaging of the original Jolly Rancher Gummies. We can basically divide the ingredients into two main camps. On one side, you've got the foundational ingredients, right? Sugar, corn syrup, modified cornstarch, malic acid, and sodium citrate. Then, on the other side, you've got the additives and colors, natural and artificial flavors, mineral oil, carnauba wax, and artificial colors like red 40, blue 1, yellow 5, and yellow 6. Now, if you think about that list for a second, do you notice what's missing?
That brings us to the major plot twist of our investigation. Gelatin is completely, entirely absent from the label. This is a massive difference compared to so many other popular gummy candies on the market today. Instead of relying on animal-derived gelatin, this specific version uses that modified cornstarch we just talked about to create its gummy texture. So from a strict ingredient perspective, this effectively removes the absolute biggest red flag.
But wait, that leads us right into section 2, the hidden flavor problem. And this brilliantly illustrates our next issue. Yes, removing that massive red flag is obviously great news, but the case isn't officially closed just yet. We have to look beyond the obvious. On one hand, look at what we know for sure. No pork is listed, no alcohol is listed as a main ingredient, no gelatin, and absolutely no obvious animal-derived emulsifiers or enzymes. That is a lot of positives. But on the other hand, we have what we don't know. We don't know the exact source of those artificial flavors. And especially for the common US version of this candy, there's a complete lack of any clear halal certification. So while the main offenders are definitely missing, these critical unknowns leave careful consumers in a really tricky spot.
Let's explore why those natural and artificial flavors create such a gray area. Honestly, these ingredients are almost never fully transparent to the consumer. They might be completely plant-based or synthetic, which would be 100% fine. But they might also be processed using carriers and solvents that remain totally unverified on the packaging. Now, to be crystal clear, we are absolutely not declaring these flavors strictly haram. The facts of our investigation just don't support jumping to that extreme conclusion. However, the lack of verification creates a real secondary problem for halal-conscious consumers. The company just hasn't provided the proof needed for total peace of mind.
Which brings us to section 3, the final verdict.
So where exactly does this leave us? We've gathered our clues, we've weighed the knowns against the unknowns, and now we arrive at our calculated conclusion based on Halal Radar's assessment. The official verdict? Doubtful. Now, notice the careful nuance in that word. We are not saying haram. Because the product doesn't list gelatin, pork, or alcohol, there just isn't hard evidence to declare it definitively forbidden. This verdict of doubtful is rooted in the absence of evidence, specifically the lack of clear halal certification and those unverified sources for flavorings and production controls. This isn't about fear-mongering at all. It's simply about acknowledging what we honestly cannot prove.
So, the crucial point is, how do we handle that doubt? Well, we can look directly to foundational Islamic principles. In Islam, halal isn't based on fear, but believers are taught not to ignore doubtful matters either. The Prophet taught Muslims to leave what makes them doubt for what does not make them doubt. When you apply this logic to our investigation, it's incredibly clear.
Candy is a treat. It's not a necessity. And because it's not a necessity, there's absolutely no reason to risk consuming doubtful ingredients just for a quick sugar fix.
Let's wrap things up with Section 4, Practical Steps for Consumers.
Let's shift our focus from the investigation itself to actionable, real-world steps for you. If you ever find yourself standing in the candy aisle trying to make a decision, here is a fantastic roadmap to follow. Step 1. Always check your exact packet. You can never rely purely on a brand name, because formulas and regional variations change all the time. Step 2. Actively scan that ingredient list for gelatin, alcohol, or pork. If you see them and the product isn't certified, just put it back. Step 3. Look for a clear, reliable halal certification mark. And finally, Step 4. If you're holding a packet like these original gummies, where the bad stuff is missing but the certification is too, make the safe choice. Choose certified alternatives. They are everywhere on the market, they remove all the guesswork, and most importantly, they protect your heart from doubt.
We'll close out this explainer with one final thought. You know, Islam doesn't seek to make life difficult. Rather, it teaches believers to eat what is pure, clear, and pleasing. So the next time you're faced with unverified flavors and a lack of clear certification, just ask yourself, is a piece of candy really worth your peace of mind? Thank you so much for joining me for this investigation. I hope this leaves you feeling empowered and eager to continue deeply understanding the everyday food choices you make.